No, I've got nothing to talk about, but I have a podcast count that I need to go up, right? Actually, I do have a few things to talk about. They have no coherence, but I'm going to talk about them after this music. What I want to talk about first. Okay, I'm just going to go through. There are just several items that I thought these are never going to cohere into an episode that makes sense. So I'm just going to talk about them separately. I do have I have a subject building up, which is, do you remember when I talked about the free library in my neighborhood and how I was buying books? Well, I do have a couple of those books, but I want to make sure I don't want to unbox them until I have at least 4, and then do a little segment of me putting them in the free library so that people can pull them out and enjoy them. But since I'm not ready for that, I'm just going to go through a few thoughts that, this is Thoughts of Leith. Just some thoughts that I've had. The first one is, someone asked me what this is because it didn't used to hang here, and now it's hanging here. And they asked me what the heck it was. Very good eye, by the way. Basically what this is, it's a pocket watch. And a while back, I think I got this pocket watch as a gift. But I also, at some point, bought myself a pocket watch. Sort of black and with some blue highlights on it. I like the idea of carrying a pocket watch, but the problem is, look at these letters. You see this? Reading glasses. Reading glasses means that if I wear them while I'm just walking, I can't see anything. Like right now, I can't see anything beyond like 5 feet. Pull them off, I can't see anything within 2 feet, or however far this is. That's probably 3 a yard. So basically what a pocket watch means is that every time I wanted to check the time, I'd have to pull out my glasses and then pull out the pocket watch. Maybe I should just get a monocle. Just bring the absurdity to a head. So I don't wear the pocket watch. I bought it, and or this one was a gift, but I bought another pocket watch, and I just realized, but it makes a nice decoration. It's a little extra something. I have another lamp that has a little tassel on it. It gives breaks the symmetry of the piece a little bit, which is always good. But when I was thinking about pocket watches, it occurred to me that we've come through this cycle of time-checking gestures. Now, in the age of the pocket watch, if you were going to make a gesture for checking the time, you'd fake a reach into your pocket and go, well, I looked at the time, right? That would be your pocket watch era gesture. But then we got wristwatches, and this is the one that's still kind of current, which is, you go, well, I don't know what time I'm going to be there. Even if you don't wear a wristwatch, I've never regularly worn a wristwatch, but when I talk about time, I do this thing where I do this, But now, how do you check time? You reach into your pocket and you look at your phone. We've come full circle. Only the phone is the new pocket watch. I tell you what I want. When I thought about this, I thought, how cool would it be if they'd make a pocket watch that inside it was a phone with all the apps, and you could like tap your phone, or you could just check the time. You get a little, I'm watching YouTube now. Someone's got to be working on this, because that's the coolest idea I've ever heard, and I would totally buy that. I would have 2 phones, because I like the big screens on the new phones. People complain, but I don't have small hands, so I don't mind so much. But I would also have a little one like this, just to be pretentious, Just pop it out, have a pipe-shaped vape, and just make everybody hate me. So that was the first thing I thought, because someone had asked me what this was. They had noticed that it wasn't there at one point, and then suddenly it appeared in my podcasts, so it requires explanation. The second one is that I had, when you check your mail, who gets snail mail anymore? But I check my mailbox, which is, I live in an apartment building, so it's this wall of mailboxes. I check it because sometimes small items that are shipped through the Postal Service end up in there. And today I did. I had a little thing, ironically, vape related, little piece of equipment in there. But I also had, of course, a lot of things addressed to resident and some catalogs. But I also had this, which was a letter from Bank of America. And weirdly, normally when I get things from banks, I just throw them out because I know there's some offer. But I used to have, a long time ago, as a matter of fact, this letter will tell me. I used to have a long time ago, maybe it doesn't. A long time ago, I used to have an account with Bank of America, like at least 5, maybe 10 years ago. I closed it and bank with someone else now. But so I thought maybe there's some shenanigans going on with my closed account. So just out of just sheer suspicion, I opened this, and here's what it was. Here's a refund check for your closed account. After a recent review, we found you may have been charged 1 or more monthly maintenance fees in error. So they sent me a check. I'm not going to show you the check because you'll be able to zoom in and get information from it. I'm not that dumb. But yeah, it's not a lot of money, but it's nice to know. They could have never given me this money back, and I would have known. But they did their review, and they sent me the money, and I'm gonna use my phone to deposit it in my new bank. And I just thought, you need to check your mail. I know we've gotten into this habit of, because we get everything through email now. I'm in this habit myself. I just see things and I'm like, nope, this is garbage. There's a few, like if Colonial Williamsburg sends me something because I'm a donor there, I'm a Duke of Gloucester level donor, which is, I think it's the lowest level. It might be the second lowest level. But I do check because I care. But most of the stuff, if it's just from I get a lot of things from charities wanting, and I'm like, I already give to all the charities that I want to give to. Sorry. But this one I checked, and it turns out, you know what? I'm going to start checking more things. Completely unrelated subject, and now for something completely different. Today I was going to the grocery store, and all the seasonal summer stuff is coming out. The citronella candles, a few Independence Day things if you're in the United States, or if you're not in the United States, I should explain this. Independence Day is July 4th, so they're already starting to put out decor for that. And today I was walking past. I always look, because even though it's cheap grocery store stuff, sometimes there's some things I don't mind cheap stuff if it looks cool. And I almost bought a tea light holder. They had these ceramic tea light holders that have holes all in it. I almost bought one. I tell you, I have a feeling I'm buying one, and if I do, I'll show you, and show you how sometimes I give in to the tacky. But what I did see there, and the moment I saw it, I'm like, you're screwed. You're buying that. They had piles of napkins, and every season you get different napkins. When fall hits, you get the napkins with the leaves on it. And then when it gets December, you get the napkins with the snowflakes on it. Something that, if you're going to have a party. And look at what the napkins were. Nautical theme. It's like they knew J. Nelson Leith is going through this store, and he will buy some of these napkins. And they got me. They got me. I got them. I don't know where I'm going to use them. I don't throw parties. Maybe I'll take them to work and just kind of set them out and let all my coworkers use them. But they got me. I like it though. Here's the smart thing. This is like beach housey because it's got this nautical theme, which is a sort of rough and tumble. But look at the background color is this beach house softer thing. So they blended two very different things. There's a yin and a yang in this design, which is very impressive to me. Because they could have just gone black and white. They could have gone with something more rough in the background, but no, they did a really good job combining differing elements. What else was I going to talk about? Okay, so what I've been reading, and I unboxed this, is The Idea of the World, which is about idealist ontology. And when I say idealist, I don't mean like the common way we use the word idealist is to mean like optimistic, looking on the bright side. But idealism, in a philosophical sense, means that the universe is primarily mental in nature, and materiality is an abstraction that we use to explain the things that our consciousness perceives in the world. And I will be honest, I kind of don't want to, because look, I'm not really being fair if I did. I'm only about like a fourth of the way through. But even though I think this guy's brilliant, what's his name? Bernardo Castro, I think he's doing a really good job at dismissing physicalist ontology, but he has this obsession with interpreting the differentiated consciousnesses that we experience. You know, my consciousness isn't immediately tied to yours or to my cat's, which I don't have a cat right now, but you know, other creatures, or to the, you know, consciousness of the universe. But he focuses on this analogy with dissociative identity disorder, which, if you're not a psychiatrist or a psychologist, you might not. That's what most people call multiple personality syndrome, but it's called dissociative identity disorder. And to the degree where he comes at it from the idea that all of these consciousnesses were integrated at some point and became broken off from each other. He's not the first person. This is a common thing that crops up in philosophy, the question of how did we become dissociated from one another or differentiated from one another. Like I said, I don't want to get into this too much. My take is that the differentiation did not come from some initial organized whole, but from a whole that was at a very basic level, and the organization of the parts of that whole created differentiated selves that had never existed before. Therefore, the separations that we have from each other as conscious beings isn't that we were broken apart from each other, but that as we grew, we grew into a level of organization. And when I say we, I'm talking about all things. So, you know, as atoms organized into molecules, organized into cells, organized into multicellular organisms, and even beyond ourselves, organized into social groups and so on. At each stage in organization, we were separated from other organizations, other systems there. But we were never at that level one thing. We struggled to become one thing. So, you know, cells become multicellular organisms, and then some of those multicellular organisms organize into social groups, like human beings did. And therefore, we start to become a mind at that level. He seems to come at this, he gets hung up on what I think is a bad analogy with dissociative identity disorder. And of course, dissociative identity disorder is an integrated whole that becomes broken up. And I don't think that's the right analogy at all. I think that's the opposite of what happens. But as you can see, here's my, this is what happens when I'm really engaged in a book. You can see my notes on the side, and I am just, what you can see here, I get into this thing where I'm just writing, scribbling notes all over the place. Because it really upsets me. He's a really smart guy, and I just think that he's stuck on this analogy, which is not inept, it's not apt. Dissociative identity disorder creates alternative selves by taking something that already exists and breaking it apart. I think the arising of different selves in the universe is these separate selves didn't exist. They arise from an organization of lower levels of, you know, atoms to molecules to cells to creatures like ourselves to social groups and then so on. And I also think that there's a problem in that it's really hard for us to recognize, for example, at our level as individual creatures, that the social groups that we belong to have a mind of their own, and we don't perceive it. there's this sort of blindness that we have. But when you watch large-scale social events take place, in politics, in culture, in music, in art, it becomes very clear that there's some kind of thing going on there, and we're as unaware of that as perhaps the cells in our own body are unaware of us as individuals. I mean, who knows what our cells, our cells probably think of themselves or feel at whatever level cells do. They are a thing among other things, and those things trade food and stuff with them. But do they ever conceive of themselves as part of this superorganism? Probably not. And we don't do that either, but I think we are. I really think we are. That the social groups that we belong to are themselves organisms that have their own sort of different, it's a very different type of consciousness because it's at a different level of organization than we have. Just as it's very, when I say that cells are conscious and you're thinking, yeah, they don't sit around thinking about what they're going to watch on Netflix. No, they're not conscious the same way we are. But they are, we know, for example, Bernardo Kastrup uses a very interesting anecdote about amoebas, which are one-celled organisms, and amoebas have been known to gather bits of sand around themselves and create little jars of glass to protect themselves. They create a tool, amoebas, okay? So to look at that and say that there's not some consciousness going on there strains credibility. There's something going on there at that level, and I think that goes all the way down. It just becomes simpler and simpler and simpler because it's not as organized. And so we look at an amoeba and we say, well, how could it be conscious the way I'm conscious? Well, it's not conscious the way you're conscious. It's conscious at a different level of organization because it's one cell and you are millions of cells. And the same way, we look at how could a whole group of people be conscious? Well, it's not conscious the way you're conscious. It's conscious the way that a multicellular organism is conscious versus a cell. You're a cell in that big body. But I do think that these things, that the consciousness goes all the way up, all the way down, and up beyond us. And that's kind of the scarier part, is the up beyond us, because then suddenly you realize you're living inside of something that you're only you're just a component of. But like I said, the way I introduced this, you'd think I wasn't going to say much, but I'm only like a fourth of the way through, maybe a third. But I do want to talk about this again when I get done. And one final announcement. Next Sunday, today is the 11th, tomorrow's the 12th, but it's the Sunday after that, which will be the 19th. There will be another John Sci-Fi podcast where we are going to address paleontology, specifically dinosaurs, and how they relate to the topic of dragons. And so there's going to be some science in there. There's also going to be a little talk genre. We're going to talk about the difference between fantasy and sci-fi and how these can be brought together, and how some sci-fi can look like fantasy and how some fantasy can look like sci-fi and get miscategorized. It's going to be a lot of fun. So tune in for that. But while you're here, like, share, and subscribe to Thoughts of Leith, because we're going to have more of these. As you can see, even having absolutely nothing important to talk about is not going to stop me. It will not stop me. It's going to keep going on and on and on, even after this music is over.